Hey all, last time I did a video, I talked about when you or I, still happens to me, when we get triggered, that the bigger the trigger, the more vibrant it is. I said that my client called it getting zapped. So when we get triggered, the bigger that trigger is, the more intense that feeling is, or that experience that is, then the more that is about me. But I emphasize that's the good news because that's what I can do to work with it. So go back and look at that other video if you like, or move on with me as I help share some ideas to help with that. Remember that when we are triggered, our mammalian brain shuts down the forebrain and we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And we can become very reactive, right? That's what happens when we're triggered. Here's a way to kind of cool and quiet that triggering down, okay? If you're with another person, you can practice asking for a pause. Give me just a moment. You can ask for a recess. You can go to the restroom. You can take a quick walk around the building. You can ask for a break. May I come back and check in with you in just a few moments? Give me just a moment. You can do that. Nobody ever taught us we could do that. We could say, wait a minute, give me just a few moments. Then you want to check in with your breathing. You want to check in with your breathing because one of the first things that happens when we're triggered is we can hold our breath, clench our bellies, close our breath, our heart clenches up because we're getting ready to either fight or flee or be as quiet as possible, freeze. And so our body is using all of that, right? So when we soften the belly, take a breath or take a few breaths, restore breathing, it's like whispering in our own ear and saying, it's okay, you're safe, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Not a matter of life and death. Okay. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, you can do something that crosses the midline and it starts to get you your brain back. Starts to get your brain back. So you can either rock from side to side. You can also take something small and pass it from hand to hand. Anything that crosses the midline, right to left shoulder, left to right shoulder, havening, any of those things that cross the midline will start bringing your brain back into more concert and get your creative and your logistical parts of your brain to come back together so that you can deal with things. Softening that belly again, too, says, it's okay, I'm safe. Now, sometimes you aren't safe. Sometimes you get triggered and you're not safe. So you're going to want to get to someplace as safe as possible, as quickly as possible. So you can do that. And then you can do some of these things for yourself. Take a pause, stretch your legs, do some across the midline moving, do some breathing. And then one of my favorite things to do is just to take my hand and just place it over the middle. I know your heart's not exactly in the middle, but I'll put it to the middle. And you can do that right now. And then I can feel the heat. Can you feel the warmth? The warmth that the palm of your hand conveys. Okay, here I am. I'm coming back to myself. And then you can ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe right now? Is my blood sugar plummeting? Do I need a little something to eat? Am I dehydrated? Do I need some water? Do I need to take my sweater off? Do I need to put a sweater on? Right? What is it? What is it that I need? And then that can be followed by, what is it that I want? Here in that rest, that break that you took, you can get back to, oh, in this moment, what do I want? I want to be understood. I want to be able to speak my piece. I want to understand the other person. I need a break. I need to think about what was said or done and get clear about how I feel about it. Okay. So there's some questions to use to ask yourself. Now, if you want to go even further than that, then you can take just a moment. Once you've calmed your nervous system and you've gotten both sides of your brain back, then you can ask yourself, what was the trigger? What did that person say or do? I'm going to share some words that I know have triggered either myself or my clients in the past. Words like crazy, chill, uh, dumb, lazy, selfish, Cheap, grumpy. You see, we attach meaning to these words, but just as an aside, the meaning that I have for that word may not be the meaning that the other person who even says it means. We don't know until we know what they mean, right? We assign the power to those words and we allow them to trigger us. So the next question you could say is, well, whatever I think that person meant by saying lazy, stop being lazy. Is that what they really meant? Is it, did they mean what I think that word means? And then that can be the start of a new conversation. Hey, I heard you when you're calmed down and you know, oh, it's that word lazy. Can you go back to that person and say, I heard the word lazy. Did I hear that right? Did you say that word? Oh, you did say that word. Sometimes they're like, I never said that word. And you're like, oh, that's so weird. I heard that word. They didn't even say that word. Now I have some more work of my own to do, right? But if they said, yeah, I did say that word, then I can say, well, what did you mean by that? And they said, well, it means that you need to get a lot of sleep. Oh, well, that is true. I do need a lot of sleep. I wouldn't call that lazy. I would call that considerate. Now, see, isn't that interesting? So now instead of fighting over the meaning of the words, we're in a conversation. We're in a conversation. Do you want someone to work with you who's being considerate to themselves and taking care of their own needs so they have space and time for you? Would that work for you? So you can see there's so much more room than just the explosion that comes from the trigger. If we can get some space and we can get back to ourselves, and then if we want to take it further, this is that part where we are in charge. We can be in charge of caring for ourselves when the trigger goes off and the zap happens. So part of it is just quieting our nervous system, getting our brain back so that we can be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more creative in our conversation. And can you see how this goes all the way back to the first little series I started on this about renegotiating relationships, how this is all part of that. I work with myself and then I have more space to work with other people, and then we can do better work together and we can get along better and we can know when it's time for us to part ways to go work with someone else. There's a lot more peace and working things out.